I was invited to the place by the lady who takes care of the girls working on the streets as sex workers. They shared their stories one by one. You can't leave this place the same person as you were before entering this room.
What we actually choose to do with the privileges that we have is our choice. They don't have those choices.
They deserve more. They are trying to navigate through the storms in their lives of all challenges, all problems. But it is a lesson for us to be humble and to deserve what we were given in our lives. Are we better than other people? No. We were just born in this part of the world. That's it.
But the significant part is you are now aware, which means that you can't unsee or unlearn what you have learned or experienced.
This is Let's Pay Attention, Hacking Consciousness. I'm Cathy Dimarchos. Let's explore what it means to lead, live, and listen with intention.
Well, hello everyone and welcome to Let's Pay Attention. Our next guest, she will actually capture your heart because that's where you will feel her. It is such a privilege and joy to actually have Alina Pelka join us on this next session. So let me tell you a little bit about Alina. She's a humanitarian leader. She is a social impact advocate and she's the founder and CEO of Yorghas Foundation. She has a background that actually spans through education, business, international humanitarian work. She's actually dedicated to creating sustainable change for vulnerable communities around the world. Alina has actually led initiatives across Africa and Eastern Europe focused on women's health, maternal and child health care, education, and community development. Her work has actually helped address period poverty, maternal mortality, healthcare access, and women's empowerment, delivering life-saving resources and long-term support to thousands of women and children. Driven by a belief in the power of compassion, collaboration, and education, Alina is passionate about advancing equity, human dignity, and opportunities for women and girls, while fostering global partnerships to create lasting social impact. Who wouldn't want to know who Alina is? Alina, welcome, and honestly, thank you so much for actually joining me. I am so excited to actually just spend some time with you and allow our listeners to hear a little bit about you because there's so much depth to you. So I don't even know where to begin other than to say that I think that when I first met you, it was this instant connection. And I think that that's something that a lot of us sense, but we don't necessarily actually talk about. And to me, that's actually about being conscious, but also actually being present with who you're, in front of. So tell me a little bit about you and your story.
First of all, thank you so much, Cathy, and hello to all listeners around the world. It's really a great honor for me to be your guest. And yes, absolutely, you mentioned this instant connection. So you feel it or you don't feel it. This was one of the meetings that something instantly clicks between the people and you feel the flow and you just can talk and talk for hours and it's not boring and, everything is so natural and free. So, yeah, to start from the beginning, I think that talking about intuition and these inner feelings, we will get to this topic as well today. But I think that every story and every life have several moments that create the way, that create our life, that shift the way we lead. And maybe I should start from the beginning. I was born in Poland. It was the country that time behind the Iron Curtain, with very closed borders and very limited possibilities for children, for young people. But I was born in the family where helping others was as natural as breathing. I looked at my mother, I looked at my grandmother helping others. Whether it was just a physical help or financial help or advising people, legal advices for free to people in need. So it was just like my natural environment. And I think that's why I used to say that I think that caring for others and helping others is somehow in my DNA. So I dreamt about traveling around the world, but it was just a dream. And how could I know that time that the world would change so much? So I was also a Girl Scout, so it was also a kind of service for others till till university. I was very much engaged into scouting and helping people. Then my academic time, and after graduating the university, I worked as a teacher, as a librarian, as a dance instructor, because I also made 2 postgraduate diplomas. So in 2011, I decided to change my career. I had a feeling I achieved something and I can't grow any longer in the place where I was. So I engaged in business. And it was business that led me to Africa for the very first time.
Oh.
It was business,
Wow.
yes. So my first trip to Africa was in 2014, Kenya. And then in Tanzania, a few years later, it was my first real encounter with community work. It was in Tanzania. And I remember this moment, that inner feeling that, yes, I have found my place. And this is what I would like to do. But the way from that moment to registering the foundation and devoting myself to nonprofit work, it was, of course, long. However, I did it even earlier than I planned, even earlier than I expected. So, and another shift came from personal experiences. I mean, for such heavy moments like serious illnesses affected people closest to me within my family. And, it always confronts you with the fragility and impermanence of life at a moment. These are moments that change our perspective on what truly matters in life and what do not. So it even made me more aware that time is not guaranteed and that how we live and what we choose to focus on each day really matters. So since then, I live, I lead, and make decisions with a much stronger sense of clarity about what is truly important and what is not.
We've had a discussion, but hearing you just share that, Alina, it's almost like I'm looking in the mirror and hearing myself speak. Like, I'm not kidding. So in 2014 was when Ebola broke out in, Uganda.
Yeah.
No, it was actually in the West Coast. And so that's when my daughter actually said, I'm going to go and volunteer in Africa. And then from 2015 onwards, we actually kept going. Well, I kept going back to Tanzania. And as I was listening to you speak, I'm thinking, I wonder if we were actually on the same continent at the same time.
Yes.
Like, it is just so uncanny that the universe has actually just brought us back together. And yet we almost started at the same starting point. Like, that's just fascinating for me.
Yes, it really is. But it is just, this saying that Africa doesn't leave anyone neutral. You love it or you hate it. And I met people in my life that worked even as ambassadors in the African countries, but they came back and they said, never again. They do not feel it. They do not like it. And they have right to feel that way. But I think we both, you and me, we believe to the first group that it is, just like a love of the first sight. What doesn't
Yeah.
mean necessarily it is the easy love.
No, gosh, no.
Because sometimes, yes, it makes you feel uncertain and even depressed. But yeah,
Yeah.
this is the very special kind of feeling and motivation.
It's interesting because even within that, if we have a look at the privileged life that we live, when, as a majority, we actually always focus on what is challenging. And yet working in Africa and being at grassroots, we see some of the most horrendous things.
Yeah.
Yet the people that are actually in those situations always see the good.
Yeah.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. Of course, it is also a problem of not romanticizing. I don't know if it is the good English word, the
Yes.
poverty. Yeah. So saying that people, they have nothing, but they are happy with what they have. It's just the half of truth, yes, because they deserve more. They are just trying to navigate through the storms in their lives, all lacks of all challenges, all problems. But it is a lesson for us to be humble and to deserve what we were given in our lives. That the very basic things we take for granted every single day are not obvious. Who we are to be given it. Are we better than other people? No. We were just born in this part of the world. That's it. And we have water.
It's interesting that you say that. One of the things that I remember, when I first came back from Tanzania, I was really miserable. I was miserable at the life that I actually had the privilege of living. It was almost like this frustration. And I remember my son saying, "Mum, we've been listening to you now complain for 4 months. You have a choice. You can do something about it." And it's to the very point that you just actually said, right? We have a choice. What we actually choose to do with the privileges that we have is our choice. They don't have those choices. And it's interesting that we need to almost experience something, and I don't mean through a book or through a movie. It is to actually live it, to actually understand it. And that is such a significant difference, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And this is also about consciousness in our lives, right? What you very often talk about. It is first and foremost about awareness, about pausing and asking myself, why am I doing what am I doing? What can I do to do better? What values really stand behind my decisions? And what impact do my actions have on other people? Whether we measure our success by achievements, the number of achievements, financial achievements, or maybe by impact our decision have on other people.
Do you think that we, it's difficult to actually reach that stage of, I'm going to say, awareness if you don't experience a tragedy? Because that was the other thing that I think you shared. You had some challenges, personal challenges, that you needed to actually overcome. And through that process, you actually really crystallized what it was that you wanted to do. Because I know for me, even though, again, with my family, like yours, philanthropy, doing good, helping others was actually part of the way that I grew up. And I'm not saying that I grew up in a family where we had a lot, because my father was ill most of my childhood and my mother worked 3 jobs. So watching that actual kindness, the gift of giving, with grace, I think was our learning without even realizing that that's what we were learning. right? But like you, I remember, when I came back on one of my trips from Africa and COVID had actually just, the world stopped. My father actually passed away and my mother actually had a heart attack the day before my father passed away. And that was another crystallized moment. You need to do more. Just
Yes.
like you, right?
Yeah.
So do you think that that brings a level of greater awareness, Alina?
Yes, I think you are right. It brings greater awareness when you touch it, when you experience it, when you are in this situation. Let's look at the very simple example, Africa. It is a difference to read about this continent, yeah, right? To watch movies. Even if you watch a movie, The Last King of Uganda, where the action is in Mulago Hospital. And it is a difference if you really were there. So I was there. I visited Mulago Hospital. I talked to the people. And later on, when I watched the movie, it was a different story at all than other people. It is just, a very trivial example, but it is a matter of experience, simply. And when you have a chance to speak to people, to talk with the people, to listen to them, to listen to their challenges, it is a different story to know, for example, period poverty is a problem. And it is a difference when you meet girls and women affected by period poverty. Girls, teenagers that were forced to prostitution to earn some small money to buy sanitary pads for themselves that are needed to go to school and continue their education. When I was in Kenya last year, I was invited to the place that by the lady who takes care of the girls working on the streets as sex workers. I listened to their stories. They shared their stories one by one, 20 girls.
Yeah.
These are life-changing moments, Cathy. You can't leave this place the same person as you were before entering this room. Nothing is simple. Usually things are not the way we think they are. They are complex, more complex. So, yes, I think that experience and being in the situation really 100% in and experiencing it in a real time and life is important, and it changes our perspective very much.
Oh, look, as I was actually, listening to you there, it took me back to a moment when we lived with a Maasai. So on my very first trip, we spent 3 weeks in Endulan, in Gorogoro, living with a Maasai. And it was living with a Maasai. It wasn't, a hotel. We didn't shower for 3 weeks, no electricity. So
I know. I was there too. Not the same place, but Boma.
yeah, so when you see something, what we don't realize is that we're actually looking at it through our Western lens and applying what we assume, because there is no context or perspective in actually understanding. There's just small things in, like, you can see a photo of a boma, but until you actually know what it smells like to sit inside it and try and lie in it, there is no way that you can interpret that.
Absolutely.
It's the smallest things, right?
Yes.
And I think that that's actually become almost normalized. Oh, I've read about it. Oh, yes, I know. I saw that movie. Oh, I've watched that. Okay, I'm glad you've got a version of it, but it is your version. And I know it's your reality, but it's not the reality.
Absolutely. Totally agree. Totally agree. And that's the eternal mistake people from so-called Western world do. We try to use our context and treat it as obvious for everybody in this planet. And it is the biggest mistake we can make. Because they are so different. Even if you want to joke that context is different, right? How can we talk, for example, about giving advices to Maasai people related to building something or to buying a land, if a huge part of them, they don't even have this ID number. They are not registered. They do not have IDs. The land they possess, they don't have tools even to measure it. They don't know really how much does it mean 12 acres or more. They do not count their cows because of traditional beliefs that it will mean a bad luck. They recognize their cows because, as you know, cows for Maasai are everything. They believe that God gave to Maasai at the beginning, when he was creating the world, they gave all cows of the world to Maasai people, as made Maasai people guardians of all cows of the world. So, etc., etc. It may be a long story, but we can't always assume that what we think about something is right. Why it is right? Because we live here. We have to learn to listen other people's perspective and assume that maybe they are right, not necessarily we are right. Because they live there, they know better. Even if we think that we have solutions. That's why, for example, in my activity, in nonprofit work, for me, honest partnership is everything. I can't imagine doing anything in the African country without local partner that we treat as a real partner, that we listen to. So everything we do, it always comes from the ground, from the people, through the local organization partnering with us. If they think there is a way that our solutions or our ideas may align with what's on the ground, may help to solve the problems and somehow make a positive impact on people's lives on the ground, that point that we can meet, join our forces and work together. I can't go there and bring my understanding, my solutions, because I don't live there. I'm not one of them. No matter how much my heart is in Africa, I'm still a person born here. So I think that respect and humility is a basic thing.
You said something in respect to, having the ability to listen. And, I was thinking about, just in context, about how do we listen? And we've been taught to listen, to actually respond to what it is that the person that's asking the question wants to hear. But we haven't been taught to listen, to be curious and to ask more questions. And then, on top of that, if we're in a discussion and somebody says something different, the first thing is, well, I've got to prove that I'm right instead of being curious, right?
Exactly. 100%.
I remember, again, it was during the time living with the Maasai, and one of the warriors, and this young man actually went to university, but he would always come home, to live with his community. And I remember one time he said, Cathy, I'm setting up the Duputu Foundation. And I said, Kimani, what is the Duputu Foundation? And he said, well, I want you to help me with this. And it was actually about telling young girls to say no to circumcision and no to childhood marriages, and that they wanted to go to school. And I said, okay. And he said, so will you help me to talk?
Yeah.
And I said to him, I sat there and I thought, wow. And it took me a really long time, Alina, because in that moment, something changed in my mind, and it was, I can talk, but I think I'm going to cause more damage because I'm not going to be here. I'm here for such a short time. So if that young girl hears me, if a mother hears me, what's the message? Because that young girl is hearing me, a Westerner, a white woman, telling her what she should do, which is the very opposite to what her mother has done. So
Yes.
even in just recognising the dynamics in that relationship, let alone anything else, I said to him, Kimani, I may actually have thoughts and I think it's a great idea, but I don't have a voice here. This isn't my voice to be heard. It is your voice within the community.
Exactly.
Because you're going to be here.
Yes, totally agree, Cathy. And especially in this topic, FGM, right? Circumcision. I thought about it so many times. And you can see that this is not something that is in our projects. I have my thoughts. We can talk about, this harmful tradition for hours. But I have always thought that this type of harmful traditions, hundreds years, thousands years tradition, this is something that can be changed only by the community. So what we can do is, for example, to help someone to create the fund, to establish the CBO or an NGO that will fight this tradition. But we can't come from outside to their lives, to their world, and tell them what's right and what's wrong, no matter what we think. It's our perspective. Another thing is that there must be alternative way shown and created to the girls. Because it's from our perspective, it's easy to say, oh, you just can run away from your home, you can run away from your Boma community, you can go somewhere. There are different organizations running, houses, shelters for girls, human trafficking victims, and et cetera, et cetera. This is the example of Western thinking, because we can't forget that in this continent, community is everything.
Yeah.
Everything. For thousands of years in this hard environment, climate conditions, people learned that they could survive only together, living together, helping each other, supporting each other in community. Therefore, community is more important, much more important than in our world. And it's everything what community says about you, what they advise you to do, family, children that are raised to, especially girls, to be very submissive and listen and respect other people's opinions. They are never rebels, like it happens in our world. So exactly, I'm really happy that you touched this topic, because what we can do is supporting and helping the organizations and activists that make a difference on the ground. This is our role, but we can't go there in our shoes, just entering their world and tell them what to do, who we are to do that.
Yeah, somebody actually said to me, but you have an opinion. And I said, an opinion is different to what I do. That would almost be like, I'm going to go and drop a bomb and walk away. How does that help?
Yes, exactly.
It doesn't, right?
Yeah.
So, Alina, do you think that there's actually lessons, in what we experience, particularly, I'm going to say, through the differences in culture that we experience, that also actually transcends into everyday life, business, relationships, that we can actually learn from?
Yes, absolutely. We already started talking about it, that listening is a key. Listening, not to immediately trying to express our feelings or to formulate a response, but just listening and trying to understand without judging. Understand
Yeah.
without judging. So this is something, I think this is a key. We learn from differences. The point is not to make any assumptions at the very beginning. Be
Yeah.
open and not to judge.
It's interesting. You know what was running through my mind then? Even some of the ways that we're educated is counterintuitive to that sort of behaviour. When I think about science or when I think about math, it's so pure. You have to get a definitive answer, otherwise it's wrong, right?
Yeah.
And so as I was listening to you then, I was thinking, we are so influenced by the things that we've been taught
Yes.
in going down a particular path. And I don't even think that we've recognized that that has actually formulated our behavior across so many things, because that's the way that we need to do things. And so it is assumed that everything has to be this way. And so, in part, I guess our education system also actually filters that narrative, and that actually starts from a young age. So once again, what we are actually embodying without even being aware, we are contributing to, I'm going to say, a closed framework in the acceptance of differences.
Yeah, exactly. Cathy, the simple example, the map of the world. I mean, the example concerning our education, yes? We know it so well. And we are not aware that it is not the real picture of the world. That the African continent is smaller on the all maps that we use, that it is smaller than it is in reality. That the real size of the can is much bigger, much, much bigger. Of course, we can, discuss different reasons behind.
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, but that's just, the first example. So, but this is the proof that what we learn, not necessarily, is the only way to behave, the only way to go and to be a citizen of the world and to interact with other people and interact with other cultures, right? Not necessarily. We have to listen. We have to learn.
We have to be curious. Yeah, right.
Curious.
Curious.
Yes, curious. It's like tourists, ordinary tourists, going for all-inclusive holiday. I'm not criticizing all-inclusive hotels and holidays. Absolutely, yes. Have a blast and let's, enjoy. But some part of tourists do not even leave the hotel. They stay there in a foreign country for 2 weeks. They are not interested in any, walks or any trips to some interesting places. They don't want to go to the town to eat in the local bars and restaurants. So, and they say they went abroad and they say, I know this country now. The hotel. You have nothing. It's nothing to do with the real life. Zanzibar.
Yeah.
Beautiful resorts. Please go outside. Look how people live. Do you know this is the only one island, by the way? There are other islands. There is a Pemba Island where people sometimes don't even use money. They just exchange the goods. because the level
Yeah.
of poverty is so high. So this is the part of real picture of the country, because once again, don't think and associate Africa or developing countries in Asia only with poverty, yes, and only with challenges. It is a complex picture. But that's the point, curiosity and being humble enough to change the perspective and to try to look at things with from someone else's perspective.
I love that you actually raised the global map because it is so simple, right? And the reality is that I'm going to say probably less than 10% of people would even question whether there is anything other than a fact in what they see, because it's not even a question that they ask. And that, I think, Alina, leads to, perhaps why we see so many, I'm going to say, assumptions, made, or the perspective that the West is right, because we don't even ask the right questions.
Yeah.
We just accept.
Yes, exactly.
Well, what does that actually say, about us as people? We are a collective. At the end of the day, we are all a human race, and yet there is such a disparity in the way that we actually even accept that there is something else that we just take for granted in what is in our ecosystem without even challenging it most of the time.
Absolutely. And always when people are in the situation when they can see something else and they immediately start compare these two realities, and they always think that their way is better and that their world is better and that their life is better. I remember when I was, during my first trip to Kenya, we traveled to the northern part of the country, and I was traveling with the late friend of mine who was a Somali man, the first political refugee in Poland, by the way.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and we stopped it was a very small hut. And the woman approached, and yes, it was a greeting. My friend started speaking in her language. And anyway, and we started asking, how are you? How is life? Other members of the family came and joined. It was one son who had a physical disability. They were really poor. And they started, thank God, Alhamdulillah, life is good. We have goats. We have a roof. There's a water that our cattle can drink. It's okay.
Yeah.
Two perspectives. And they are perspectives that make us thinking, and what is good and what is not. What does it mean to be happy? And how grateful we should be every single day. I think that is the art of life, right? To find happiness in a very simple elements of everyday life. Good, tasteful, hot tea, sun, something nice that was said to us, the smile of my neighbor. We had a very nice chat on the street, just like I had yesterday with the unknown person that stopped the car because I was, working outside. These are the small things that we tend to overlook. But this is also a part of our life. Not only these biggest things like career, family, that is absolutely most important to me as well. But this is the part of our life that we can't overlook, to be grateful for every single thing. And this is what I was, learned. And Africa taught me how to be grateful, for sure.
It is those micro moments. It's interesting. I think we are in continual pursuit, of something. We actually don't know what that something is, but we're chasing it.
Yeah.
And I think that was my greatest awareness, in that whilst, I would say that I had lots of micro moments, but it was in the being in the moment and genuinely actually feeling that elation, not because, I was in a 5-star hotel, But because I actually was standing on red earth,
Yes.
what I was smelling,
Yeah.
what was in front of me, I can still see the flies sitting on the little kids and, their dirty noses and their ripped clothes. I had so much joy and love in those moments, and it's hard to explain because people look at you and go, huh?
Yeah. I totally agree. And at the same moment, yes, I understand each and every word. Some time ago, I met one Polish journalist that's the author of several books. He's a reporter, documentaries about his trips to Africa. And he said something that really resonates with me that, he said, Alina, I think that everybody has his own Africa. Like for everybody, it means something else. But at the same time, there's always something that we have in common. And something that is really hard to explain to people that didn't experience it.
Yeah.
The moment when you leave the plane and that when hot air just hits you.
Yeah.
I remember one of my trips led through Dubai. I spent 2 days in Dubai and then went to Kenya. And, this beautiful airport with gold elements, a Rolex at every wall. Yes. Beautiful, air condition and nice flavors. Everything was clean and everything was so, it was a pleasure to be there. And then I went to Nairobi. I landed in Nairobi. That time it was even a temporary airport. It was a kind of fire, I think, years ago. Yeah. And it was a time when it was even a temporary airport. So it was hot, no air conditioning, crowdy. I spent hours standing in a long queue to passport control and everything. And then I was not alone. I was with my colleagues. We left the airport and the taxi driver came and said, "Hello, man," with this smile on the face. And we looked at each other and we say, "Oh, now we are at the right place."
Yes.
You understand what I'm saying.
It's funny, because I know exactly what you're saying. When that door opens from the aeroplane and you get out and that hot air hits you, the first thing that comes to mind is, oh, I'm home.
Yes, exactly. This is so hard to explain, but you feel you are this is your place, your home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is
I'm
an
happy
ease, right?
that you're saying that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It means it's not my imagination. It confirms
it's real.
Yes.
Yeah. I can close my eyes at any given moment and I can actually be literally standing, on that red earth. And honestly, Alina, I can smell the air. I can actually hear the light rustle, of the leaves on the trees. I'm actually there.
Yes.
So it's like, it cocoons me.
Yeah. Totally understand you. Yeah.
So if I go back to something else that you actually shared, and I think it was almost, you touched on, consciousness and intuition. And I think when you're in a place like Africa, I think a lot of people actually, the first thing they say is, aren't you scared? And for me, I go, wow, that's an interesting and very strong assumption about what is actually in Africa.
Yes.
But intuitively, I think that's heightened in places like Africa, for me anyway, in that I sense that ease, feeling home. I don't think that I have ever sensed that I was not safe.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yes, I have to answer the same question many times. Many times. I heard it many times. You just need to behave the same way you behave anywhere else in this world. You don't walk dark streets in the darkness, right? You don't go alone to the place that may be not safe.
Yeah.
You don't force yourself to be in the situation that may be potentially dangerous for you, like everywhere else. And first of all, I'm never alone there. I'm never alone. I have friends there, the people that work with me, my partners that always take care of me, by the way, the community. I remember when we slept in the village in Tanzania, in the evening, the entire community came with drums, dancing in the darkness, singing. And we of course, inviting us to join them. It was their way of saying thank you for coming, for making such a distance of thousands of kilometers to help us. And I danced in the darkness with tens of local people that I didn't even know exactly every people, the name of every person. And it was not a dangerous situation at all. So you just have to behave the way you behave everywhere. And it is not dangerous for you because it is Africa and not Poland or not Australia or not the United States.
Exactly. That's actually a really good point. Yeah. Yeah. So, Alina, you have actually traveled a lot. And I think if I actually think about, you would experience similar questions to me. But if I actually said to you, if you were going to actually, share a message, for somebody who would not traditionally go to Africa or India or, a place other than a Western country, what would you say to them?
I would say be humble first. Be open-minded. Prepare yourself to the trip. I don't mean packing suitcases. By the way, don't use always the outfits. Africa is not the one great safari. African people are very elegant and they put their best outfits when they meet you. So be prepared for the meeting and express yourself also through your elegant outfit. But it is just another topic. But be open-minded, prepare yourself, try to learn something before you go. But when you go, listen first. Watch, listen. Be curious. Ask questions to know better, not to judge.
Yeah.
And if you can, please try to make your journey impactful. Do something that will impact positively at least one person over there. Or afterwards you will hear, come back and think what you can do to make this world a better place.
That is such a valid point because I think sometimes we do it once and we go, right, done.
Yes.
I can tick that off the list. But the significant part is you are now aware, which means that you can't unsee or unlearn what you have learned or experienced. Now what's your choice about what you have experienced? What do you want to do now?
Exactly. Is it a question to me what I'm...
No, I'm saying that is such a...
a message.
It's the point, right? Yeah, because I think people forget, or maybe they don't forget, they've never even thought about it.
Yes, absolutely. But from my perspective, when you are in non-profit sector, and when you have your organization, when you collaborate with people there, even when you are here, even remotely, and you go there from time to time, but you work there and you're doing something to help people, this is also a matter of responsibility. As sustainability of the project is everything. Because I can go there for the launch of the project. I can stay there for a period of time, shorter or longer, depending on resources, situation, etc., etc. But I always want to be sure that when I leave, the difference stays there.
Yeah.
And it is also the greatest challenge and problem for me, because sometimes it happens, people are different. Our partners are also different. Sometimes we get disappointed by the people we work with, no matter here or
There
there.
you are. Yeah.
And sometimes it affects the entire project, yes? And it affects, for example, it makes you leave. It forces you to leave the place because you can no longer work there. You have no people to work there.
Yeah.
And this is the biggest challenge for me, the source of discomfort. And because I feel responsible for the people. And if we can no longer work at one school, for example, where we used to help children before, this is a source of stress for me.
Yeah.
I'm sad. I'm still looking for ways to get back there because I remember children's faces. I remember their eyes. I remember their hugs. And I don't want to disappoint people. I feel responsible for them.
I understand exactly what you're saying there. Well, Alina, we've come to the end of this session and I think we could talk for a very long time. But I do want to ask you one thing, and this is actually a question that you might be able to leave for whoever's going to listen to this, a message, a question for them to take away. What would that be?
I remember, in one old Polish movie, one of characters said one sentence that has stayed with me for years. It was, what if in the end of your life, if you could hold your entire life in your hands, what would slip through your fingers when you close your fist? In other words, what truly good do you do for others and for yourself? Do you inspire others to create good in the world? Like Mahatma Gandhi said, are you the change you wish to see in the world? And I think this is the question I would like to leave your listeners with.
That's beautiful. Thank you. That's actually very special.
Thank you so much.
It's such a joy, honestly, to actually just be in your presence and just to hear some of the stories. It's made me smile even more, just actually seeing how similar our paths have actually been. And almost at the same time. So something was happening in the world that time to actually ignite that in us, right?
This is amazing. Absolutely. Yeah, life is amazing.
Yes. People say, what do you do, Cathy? And I say, I live life because life is amazing, right?
Yes.
So thank you so much, Alina.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
This was Let's Pay Attention, Hacking Consciousness. Stay awake, lead with heart, be bold enough to listen deeply. I'm Cathy Dimarchos. Until next time, be the impact.